So, welcome to the next part of the training. We've considered some of the theory, and now we're moving closer to the point where we can really start to explore what we're actually doing with the tuning forks. So, with holosonic sound therapy, the idea is to work into the light body and to start to remove bioenergetic disturbances that may be having an effect through to the physical level. And we need to understand that the energy fields around the body are linked to consciousness. We need to understand that there's an element of a divine architect or a template for what shows up at the physical level. And all of these ideas will be really explored in some detail if you decide to go further with the process of studying with us. But for today, as part of the introductory process, we just want to give you an overview. And right now, we're going to think about some of the subtle anatomy as it relates to the biofield, or what's commonly called the aura. We want to look at what's going on with the primary and the secondary chakras, because when we work with the idea of clearing the field, we want to sort of have an understanding of why we're doing what we're doing. So we have the physical body, which is material in substance. And as we've already alluded to, the idea that what shows up at the physical level is already, you could say, templated for at the subtle level, that frequency turns into form. So the form that we take, to a great extent, is determined by what's going on in the energy field. So let's have a look at that in a little bit more detail. So if we understand that our physicality, the substance that we can touch, is connected into the idea of a field, we have the idea of this biomagnetic field that links very closely to the physical. So this is the red layer, very, very close to the physical body, and it links to our physicality. Now we've got, you could call it the robe of many colours, but the sheaths of the aura are reflecting the different colours of the light spectrum. And as we build this out, we can say the red links to the physical, the orange links to the emotional levels. We have the yellow linking to the intellectual. And then the green level is what we would describe as the interdimensional. This gives us an entry point into the astral field. So we're building out this multi-dimensional body, if you like, light body, which is really just determined by the frequencies. And I'll go into a little bit of detail as to what each of these represent. Now the blue layer links to the many lives construct, which we could describe as soul. And the indigo links to, we could call it the spirit. And then finally we have the cosmic aspect, which is the violet. So we have this beautiful light body that should be flowing, and it should be literally harmonized within our living experience. There shouldn't be any disturbances in the field. We also then need to think about the primary chakras, which link to the different layers. So we have the red base chakra, the orange second chakra, which kind of links into the sacrum. Then we have the solar plexus, which is yellow. And then the heart center, which is green. And then the throat center, which is blue. And then the indigo in the third eye. And then violet is the crown chakra. And the idea that we have the connection through the crown to the higher levels, and the connection through the base chakra into the earth. So the primary chakras, or the light centers, which link to the nerve gland centers of the body, this is often where shock and trauma is held. And what we'll do is we'll go deeper into the study. We're going to teach you how to clear the chakra system. There are specific techniques that we use using the tuning forks. For this purpose, we just want to understand what we're going to be doing when we clear the field to do the initial work of making sure that there's no static. So the idea here is that we have a solar gravity field, so we call it the solar gravity field, and then we have the earth gravity field. So we're pulled towards the earth, the core of the earth, and we're pulled towards the sun. So we have the idea of these opposing forces. There's the centrifugal force that takes us out towards the stars, and the centripetal force that takes us down into the earth. So essentially the field should be flowing, and it should be harmonized according to those two forces that are at work. And again, we'll consider this in a little more detail, but for each of us as human beings, we have a soul note that essentially takes the form of a frequency for the living experience that we're having. So for each incarnation, there is a particular purpose. And it's really important for that frequency to come through, for you to be aligned with your purpose. It's really important that everything is in a healthy flow. So I'm an osteopath, and typically we would want to make sure that we've got a level pelvis and a sacrum that's straight, and a straight spine, and we'd want to make sure that the cranium is moving. And when we spoke about the rhythms in the body in the previous class that we had, the idea is that if all of this is flowing correctly at the physical level, if the mechanical body is aligned correctly, and if the rhythms that are working through the body are working correctly, then at the physical level we have everything in place. But we need to make sure that energetically everything is flowing correctly. So the detail of all of this I can't go into now, but it's sufficient to say that if the field is clear, and if the individual primary chakras are working correctly and not holding trauma, and then we could say that the secondary chakras, which link, the base chakra links to the ankles, the second chakra links to the knees. So in the main joints of the body, so we've got the secondary chakras in the main joints. So the hips link to the solar plexus, and then the heart center links to the wrists. And again, we'll consider this in much more detail as we go deeper. The throat center links to the elbows, the shoulders link to the brow chakra or third eye, and then the crown chakra links to the TMJ. So all of the main joints link to secondary chakras. And this gives us a possibility, once we understand how all of this works, it gives us an opportunity to clear those energy centers and enter into the hologram of what might be there from the point of view of consciousness. So traumas that we may have suffered, that we've held on to in this lifetime and in others. And you could also argue that there's a transgenerational component where we might bring certain things with us from our parents or ancestors. So when we do the work with the tuning forks, it's really important to understand that the objective is to try and get a reasonable flow into the earth of any static energy that is caught up in any of these systems. We want to make sure that we're clearing it before we go into the deeper work. So I want you to imagine that there might be areas within the energy field where we have dissonance, areas of static energy that are stopping the normal flow. And this is what we're going to be working with when we use the harmonic fifth. So we're going to have the tones C and G, and there's a specific protocol which in the next class, which will be a physical demonstration of how we clear the field, you'll be able to see how that works, and I just want you to understand why we do what we do. So, for example, let's say we have on the right side here, let's say we have a liver. I'm going to draw a little liver in here, okay? Colour it in. Now, the liver at the physical level, to be healthy, needs to have everything in balance around it from the standpoint of the physical body. We need to have, blood flowing and everything working, no congestion, any physical trauma that might have occurred in and around the area or the spinal segment that gives nerve supply to the liver. All of this can influence the liver at the physical level. But the liver is also really looking for harmony in terms of the rhythms around it. So, we want to make sure that, the diaphragm is not tight. We want to make sure that everything is in flow rhythmically. So again, we go to the biomechanical and then the biorhythmic. But what's also really important is the bioenergetic aspect. So if we have a situation where there is a disturbance in the field as it relates to the liver is going to be looking out into the field. It's going to be looking out into the light body for a reference point to normal. Now, let's say it gets to the orange layer here, where we have the emotions locked up. And let's say for whatever reason, there's been an emotion or an experience that really led to anger. What sits in the liver emotionally, it links to anger, resentment, frustration, bitterness, those kind of feelings. So there could be liver dysfunction. You could be looking at, fatty liver or elevated liver enzymes or some kind of problem. Maybe the hormone balance is off because the liver is involved with the conjugation of the hormones. So there might be a hormonal imbalance, maybe a perimenopausal dysfunction. There could equally, because of its involvement with the digestive system, be issues with digestion and issues where food isn't being correctly assimilated. It's also a very important detox organ, so it might be that the detox pathways aren't working correctly because of a disturbance in the energy field as it relates to the liver. So there could be all manner of different symptoms happening because the liver is not receiving the right signals, because the patient is angry about an issue that they haven't been able to maybe let go of. So the only way we can fix the liver is to clear the disturbance in the field. Now, if we move a little bit further out into, the many lives construct, let's say we get further out in the field and we're here at the level of soul, there could be something from another time in another place which is having an impact on the liver. So we can't really limit our thinking in terms of what might be creating a problem in the liver. It may be that there's an inherited factor, and from the ancestral point of view, the patient may well have had an angry alcoholic grandfather, and at the point of conception of the parent, the patient, it was carried through on the sperm or the egg, and then the parent then conceives the patient, and the patient is carrying the disturbance in the light body that relates to the angry alcoholic grandfather. So you can see it's not always about our own stuff. Sometimes it's about the inherited patterns that come through. So when we work with the tuning forks, and I'll show you in the next training how we're going to clear the field, I want you to understand that we're basically taking this energy field in its 3 dimensions, and we're going to be clearing out the static and sending it to earth. We're going to be basically grounding the static. So it's the very, very first thing we have to do to make sure that we're opening the bioenergetic communication pathways. So we're basically restoring bioenergetic communication pathways. If we look at the physical body, with our program, we've got various herbs and supplements that we use. We call that RCCP, which is restoring cellular communication pathways. So that's a very, very good and effective protocol for working to clear the cellular blockages that are present in the body and get the systems of the body working correctly. But you can see now that none of that really is going to work optimally if we have the bioenergetic pathways compromised. So I want you to understand this for when we're going to be clearing the energy fields with the harmonic fifth. So that's the aluminium tuning forks, the C and the G. And the process we're going to use is, you'll see it when I demonstrate it, but we're literally going to sweep through the field, through the points of the compass. So you have northeast, southwest, and then we've got the intermediate points as well. So we're basically going to go round the field, starting, if you think about north, east, south, and west, and we're going to go around the body, and we're going to be working to clear the static out of the field. So as we send the harmonic fifth, the C and the G, which is the interval of 1/5, as we send that into the field in 3 dimensions, it starts to take out and clear the energetic static. It literally sends it to earth and grounds it. So all of these elements can be cleared so that we literally release it. And it's a little bit like doing the dusting. Before you start to deep clean the house, you want to just take the dust off the surface and clean it. So we're going to be using a technique that just sends the static energy to earth. Now I'm just going to show you what we do next, because after we've done that and we've gone round the field, and I will talk to you in the other classes, we need to consider left spin and right spin, because the energy field is spinning in a certain way. So as we come into the body, it's what we call right spin. So there's a clockwise spin into life. And with the first breath, we have inspiration. That's yes to life. And with the last breath, expiration, spirit going out. So spirit coming in, inspiration, spirit going out, expiration. So we're constantly, with each in-breath and out-breath, while we're alive, from the moment of birth, which is the first breath, to the moment of death, which is the last breath, we're constantly in this play and this balance of inspiration with spirit coming in, which is a right spinning phenomenon, and spirit going out, which is a left spin phenomenon. And if you don't understand the spin aspect of what's going on in the energy field, and if you don't understand how to correct that, then you're going to get stuck at a certain point. So we'll consider all of that as we go deeper into the work. But for the moment, we just want to make sure that we're basically grounding and sending this energy into the earth. And that's why it feels so good if you go to the beach and you stand with your feet in the sand in the edge of the sea. That's why it feels really good if you walk barefoot. You know, you go into the woods and there's grass and you know, you can be barefoot, really connected to the earth, because it discharges the static electricity that's in the field. It's why it feels really good if you get into a bath with Epsom salts and sodium bicarbonate, because as you lie in the bath, this electromagnetic energy field is able to flow through the conducting medium because you've got the salts in the water, so it helps everything to conduct better. So we're going to take the tuning forks and we're going to take everything to earth. Very, very simple, straightforward technique. And then what we're going to do is we're going to sweep through the primary and the secondary chakras. Now I'm just going to draw that out for you so you understand what the intention is as we work. So again, when we demonstrate it, you're going to see the tuning forks are used literally to sweep across in the horizontal to take the static energy out of the light centers. So the first thing we do is we link to the crown chakra and the TMJ joints. And we're going to work to sweep the crown, and then we're going to think about the temporomandibular joint, and the sound acts as a carrier wave for our intention. So the intention of what we're doing is really, really important. The next level we would then go to would be to the secondary chakras linked to the brow. So we're thinking of the third eye, which links to intuition. And again, in the deeper classes, we'll go into a lot of detail in terms of what each of these chakras represent from the archetypal perspective, because it's hugely important to understand the archetypes that are working through each of these centers. But we're going to sweep through the brow, and then we're going to go to the shoulders. And then when that's clear, we're going to work from the throat across to the elbows. And once that's been cleared, we're then into the heart center and across to the wrists. So you can see the schematic here, it's becoming very obvious. The solar plexus is then cleared with the hips to follow, and then we have the sacral or second chakra, which links to the knees. So we clear the sacral chakra, second chakra, and then we clear the knees, and then finally we clear the base chakra and the ankles. So we've worked on the primary and the secondary chakras, and this really paves the way for when we want to go into the hologram of the light body. This is why it's called holosonic sound therapy, because we can enter into the hologram, into the story as it relates to past, present and future. And once we know we've got everything clear, we can really see where the problems are. So what I'll do is I will leave it at that just for now. We've just got to consider the very, very basics of the subtle anatomy that's at work. And when we go into the deeper classes, we'll be looking at each of these layers, each of the chakras. We'll be looking at the representation, as I say, the archetypes. We'll be looking at how they develop with the different ages and the different cycles of 7 years, because, you know, the base 0 to 7, and, you know, we've got a whole process where we go through an evolutionary process through each of the chakras up to the age of 49, and then it repeats. I mean, there's a lot to consider in all of this. But for the time being, and just to give you an introduction, and just to give you something really that you can buy 2 tuning forks, and once you understand the basics of this, if you understand that we're just clearing the static energy out of the energy field and clearing any superficial shock and trauma out of the primary and secondary chakras, the light centers that link to the nerve gland centers and the main joints, you can do so much good just at home. You don't need to be medically qualified. You can just do so much good with 2 tuning forks, which are readily available once you understand the technique. And that's what we'll teach you when we demonstrate the practical aspect. So you'll have seen the theory from the standpoint of the PowerPoint presentation. Now you've got an understanding of what we're doing at a very basic level with the light body and the different levels of consciousness. So physical, as we go into the emotional, intellectual, astral, soul, spirit, and cosmic levels, it gets really super interesting, because you can get into some very, very deep aspects of what might be going on in a very, very straightforward way. So whether you're treating your children at home, or whether you're treating friends who might have quite complex issues, what we can say, and we've mentioned before, that the holosonic sound therapy method is non-cathartic, it's non-confrontational. There are no real contraindications to doing this work. We don't enter into a process of healing crisis, because it's done very respectfully and gently, and so we have a potential for change, really interesting and good change, but it's safe to teach anybody how to do this. So that's really what I wanted to consider to start with. I would love to go into more detail, and we've got the whole idea of, the heaven, if you like, is the positive. We've got the receptivity, or you could say the negative is the creative principle works from positive to negative. We've got all the ideas of spin. That's for a later date. It's so interesting. We want to also consider the nature of the light body, and how hugely powerful it is in terms of the stepping down of the different elements into the physical form, and how the physical form in a way is only there because of the frequency that's present in the field, and the fact that the physical body is precipitated out of the blood. The fluid body is informed by the field, and the body is precipitated out of the fluid body. It gets us into some very, very interesting areas. So I hope that, once we've taught you the basics, you might decide that you want to go deeper, which of course we can do. But for the time being, this just gives you a nice graphic, visual representation of what it is you're going to be doing when you learn how to do the practical clearing of the field. So we call that clearing the field, and then we're going to be clearing and sweeping through the chakras. Okay, so next class will be a practical demonstration.